The last time we saw you was a week ago this morning when our lives seemed normal. And then the unthinkable happened.
A plane has crashed into one of the twin towers of the World Trade Center. You can see it now on the screen right there. And don't know what the intent was, whether it was deliberate or accidental.
Just then, our worst nightmare occurred. A second plane slammed into the South Tower. And now it was clear this was a terrible act of terrorism. Then came the news that the Pentagon was hit. And still more bad news. Another hijacked plane had crashed in Pennsylvania, killing everybody on board. Today, the heroic effort continues. The death toll rises. But amid the despair, we continue to hope for signs of life from beneath the debris. Exhausted rescue workers refuse to give up. Our nation has never been more united. Across the country, Americans are pulling together. Everywhere you look, there are tremendous shows of support and patriotism and faith. It's truly overwhelming. Terrorists tried to tear us apart, but they failed. Instead, we as a nation have become stronger and have only been brought closer together.
Hi, everybody. It's Tuesday, September 18th, 2001. It seems like a year ago that we were with you, but it's only been a week, and what a week it's been. And incidentally, today is the beginning of the Jewish New Year, 5762. We wish everyone a Happy New Year, or Shana Tova. I hope I got that right.
Very good.
So, good morning, Miss Kelly. Haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
Hasn't it been something?
I'm so glad to see you.
Nice to see you.
I am so glad to see everyone. Every day now, I have a renewed appreciation
of life,
for humanity, and for life, and I am so thankful that we live in this great country. I am so proudly American. I am so proud of...
A lot of people feel that way. Sometimes, unfortunately, it takes something like this catastrophe to drive it all home to us, what we really are all about and what we should be thankful for.
Yes.
You know, as the week progressed, I decided to make notes because I didn't know when we were going to come back, you know, and be on the show. I thought it'd be sooner than this, but this is an ongoing story, and so some of these things may sound superfluous, but I was really touched by, goes without saying, the police, the firefighters, the steel workers, the construction guys, everybody who was down there at ground zero digging. I mean, their determination really gave all of us a lot of support in this time.
They are the greatest human beings alive. The greatest. When people are running out of a building, they are going in.
Boy, and the tragedies that happened, I mean, to have the fire chief and the commissioner and the chaplain. Here's a priest giving somebody last rites on the ground, and he gets hit by a falling body, and he dies as well. I mean, the stories are just endless. But I had a bunch of other thoughts as well. For example, the situation about knives. Well, you know, when they tightened security at the airport a few years ago, why didn't someone think about putting knives on the list of things they ban when you board an airliner? Doesn't that make sense? Apparently, it didn't, because knives are allowed on, at least up to 4 inches. And they were quite a lethal weapon in this whole thing.
I can't imagine. You know, I have to believe, I have to believe in my, because my soul hurts, and I have to believe that at some point God stepped in and possibly took everyone on the plane before the reality of the situation could have hit them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Maybe it was adrenaline that was keeping them going, but maybe their souls were already in heaven, so they didn't have to suffer that way. Because I cannot imagine people being in an airplane knowing that it's headed for certain doom. My mind doesn't let me go there, and so I'm hoping that God stepped in and took their souls.
Well, it's nice to think that maybe he did.
I hope so.
Yeah. Cell phones. You know, I don't own a cell phone. I just learned how to work one a couple of weeks ago. Everybody in the world has got one, but cell phones came into their own in this story. Where else, if you're in a situation like this, are you ever going to get that last call to someone you love to tell them you love them? before it's over. Or if you get into an emergency situation where your life is being threatened, that you could call someone and tell them what's happening to you. Unheard of before, and now pretty commonplace with the use of cell phones.
We actually, I went to the, we live across the street from a food emporium, and I went to get some bottled water and things, and I got down to the lobby of the building, and it's literally right across the street. I went back up to get my cell phone because I thought, well, if something happens, I want to be able to make that call. You know, I want to be able to either call for help or call to say goodbye. And so these are thoughts that we shouldn't have to live with, but we do now, and we do it united. And it's,
keep your cell phone with you.
Yeah.
Have you noticed all the flags, the American flags?
Yes.
You know, in this city where there are so many nationalities who live here, and all of them, and I admire their spirit, you know, for what their homeland used to be, and the way they wave their flags, it's kind of inspiring. But you rarely see the American flag until something like this happens, and now everywhere we look in New York, there are American flags, and it's good to see them. And incidentally, somebody told me yesterday, and we'll show you some film of our visit to the area where all this happened, that they would like to have more flags down there. Boy, they've got everything else, but there's a shortage of flags, believe it or not.
You really cannot find American flags now because everyone is so proudly waving them. We were driving home, and home to New Jersey, and we were driving down Route 4, and there was a family of 4 people on the side of the road, and the children had made a homemade banner that said, "God bless America," and the parents were holding a flag. And it made everyone so proud and for a moment happy just to see this family for no other reason than to just try to inspire people to go on and to continue standing there on the side of the road. It was just amazing.
And speaking of flags, I guess this cover of Newsweek magazine is the best cover of all of them. The 3 firefighters here in New York, all grimy and blood spattered and dusty, and there they are raising the American flag. Sort of reminds you of the 6 Marines raising the flag on Iwo Jima during one of the bloodiest battles of World War II.
They're the greatest Americans, those
And
firefighters.
Mayor Giuliani, I mean, so much has been said about him, and when I first noticed him about 4 or 5 days ago running around inspiring the city, I just said what a giant he has become in the minds of all of us. Thank God he is still in office as we wind up this career.
You know, he seems to truly have a finger on the pulse of not only, you know, I'm speaking in terms of New York because here is where we are, and here is where I live during the week anyway. And Mayor Rudy has a finger on the pulse of New Yorkers, and I noticed that, you know, every 45 minutes or an hour, I would think, gosh, I feel a little unsettled. I wish there was some news conference, something telling us what is going on, and boom, Mayor Rudy would come on the air and reassure everyone he is strength personified.
Yesterday in the stock exchange and the commodity exchange, he was making a tour, and all of a sudden he heard the crowd begin to chant, 4 more years. 4 more years. Yes. A lot of New Yorkers would love to see that happen, but unfortunately there are term limits now, and so I don't think he can.
I don't think they should have that for...
Well, whatever. But George Bush was certainly impressed with him, and I think probably there might be a job for him in the administration after all of this is over. And finally, when I look out of the window at night now, the New York skyline, and you just see the Empire State Building there. It used to be in the background with those 2 giant towers. And all of a sudden, the Empire State Building looks pretty lonely out there in the darkness. So those are some of the observations that I had. And incidentally, President Bush, speaking of him, seems to get stronger with every television appearance that he makes. So that's good to know. Now, what do we have downtown? We have a young man by the name of Joe Torres, one of our reporters here at Channel 7 in New York City. He's on Canal Street, which is where the perimeter begins. You can't usually go beyond Canal Street if you're a reporter because there are so many people down there actually digging with their hands and shovels to get to the people that might be rescued. Although, hopes are fading fast for those people. It's been a week now. But let's go to Joe Torres near Canal and Lafayette Street in downtown New York and see what's going on 1 week, almost 1 week from the day all this happened. Joe?
Regis, Kelly, good to see you, good to hear you, and after circumstances that we've just experienced over the last week, that takes on a whole new meaning. Just to bump into the street and say, good to see you, good to hear you. And as you'll see in just a little bit, because I'll show you a story that I experienced 1 week ago being down here as a reporter, it takes on a whole new meaning when someone walks up to you and says, how you doing? The genuine care and concern. We thought we'd be able to take you to Wall Street this morning, but as you can imagine, with the tight security from the police and the military police and the National Guard, they're watching everyone who gets into the restricted area of Lower Manhattan. So as far as we can get was Canal Street and Lafayette here, and you can see life goes on in this portion of Lower Manhattan. This is the heart of Chinatown for those of you watching from out of town, and I would talk to some of the people here to find out how they're doing, but as you might understand, there's a little bit of a language barrier. The traffic, obviously, much lighter than what you would expect. Canal Street is a major thoroughfare that gets you from one side of town to the other, a lot less traffic. And you know what? As we came down here, New York is a different place right now. I don't hear horns. I don't hear yelling, I don't hear screaming, I don't hear short tempers. What you see are people just walking around, and if you could read their minds, you get from them the sense that they're just happy to be here. At the same time, thinking of the thoughts and the feelings of the workers who are so diligently trying to do their best to get into the site and rescue and recovery and do whatever they can.
Well, Joe,
Regis,
I was down
Kelly,
there.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was down there yesterday. I got the same sense that it's kind of like a different New York, at least for the time being. Is there anything new this morning going on news-wise?
In the sense, Regis, that the recovery and the rescue effort is ongoing, and I know and I understand that it's been a week now, and you talk to the firefighters, and we're nowhere near them because otherwise I'd have one here talk to you and you can ask some questions directly. But you get the sense that the rescue and the recovery effort continues. Why so fervently? Here's the reason why. Miracles happen. And with that in mind, you move forward with every sense of passion, with every sense of speed that you can, because a miracle could exist. And who knows, you may come across someone that is still hopefully alive.
That's absolutely right. That's why they continue to dig. Now, Joe, you have been there for, well, since the beginning of this story. As a matter of fact, you yourself had rather a close call, didn't you?
Had a very close call, Regis. We were, a lot of people forget, last Tuesday was election day in New York City. We were going to the polls to vote who would be the next mayor. So all the reporters at Channel 7 and all the stations throughout the city came to work in their red, white, and blue, ready for a long day to cover the election. And there on the assignment desk shortly before 9 o'clock, we saw, as you showed at the beginning, what happened. As a reporter, I grabbed my gear, I grabbed a cameraman. We came down and got here relatively quickly behind some police officers hurrying to the scene. Regis, Kelly, you know that as reporters, to document the story, we try and get as close as possible. And we can tell you, we got a little bit too close. Watch now, photographer Glenn Mayrose and I experiencing something that we won't soon forget.
Let's go! Underground! I'm with you! Go, 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 go! Teresa, come on! Come on, Teresa! Watch out, there it is, there it is, there it is! Stop! Keep coming, Glenn, come on!
It makes your hairs stand up on end and you get goosebumps. Let me just set the scene for you. Glenn and I were a block or two away. What you saw there was the collapse of the first tower that came down. We didn't know what was happening. No one in their right mind certainly would have thought that the building was going to come tumbling down, and what we sensed underground was rumbling, getting louder and louder and louder and louder, and a police officer next to me dug her nails into my arm and said, "Joe, what is it? What is it? What is it?" I said, I don't know. We backed up against a wall because thought that would be the safest place. And one of the officers, FBI agent, Secret Service, said, underground, underground. And we thought that something was going to explode underground. We ran up Church Street, 5, 6 blocks, Glenn just lugging his gear, exhausted. And the officers are jumping on the back of ambulances, of cars, of whatever you can get to get out of there so quickly. And I can tell you the fear of the unknown is what gripped us the most. We thought that the ground was going to explode below our feet. And I'm running up the street saying, dear Lord, please, please don't let this happen. We got 5-6 blocks away, extremely thankful, but at the same time almost guilty to be thankful because you're thinking of the thousands of other people who are still behind you. Made it, and you talked about the cell phones, spent the next hour or two trying to let our colleagues there know at Channel 7 that we were okay. Yeah. Just, we couldn't get through on the phone. I couldn't get through to my wife. My cameraman couldn't get through to his family. The longest hour or two for our relatives, for our friends, for our loved ones who didn't hear from us. And when we finally got through, you can imagine the burst of tears, the emotions.
Sure. Joe, it's amazing that Glenn had the presence of mind to turn around and get a clear shot of that cloud of dust just coming up the street at you. It's amazing.
Yes. You know, Kelly, there comes a point where you stop being a reporter and a cameraman and you start being a human being. Mm-hmm. and that point was right away as soon as we knew something was terribly wrong. And Glenn, get out of here, run. And as soon as we were able to outrun the cloud, which is mushrooming behind us, I said to him, you know, are you okay? You think you're all right? Yes. Okay, at that point, turn around, get a shot of that cloud, and it's like a movie, you know, Die Hard is what the movie I often hear, where the cloud is literally coming at you. Yeah. And I said, Glenn, just hold the shot, because people are going to be running out of that cloud. And that will be the memory, that will be the experience, and if you can document it, you know, people can know and say their prayers because they're watching it.
Well, we'll never forget that one, and I'm sure you won't either, and so many reporters and other people on that on the scene will never forget that as well. Thank you, Joe, very much for the update. Well, today we're going to have a special edition of Live. I'm going to visit Ground Zero, what they call Ground Zero, or get as close to it as I could.
And then we're going to learn how to talk to your kids about dealing with terrorist attacks and crisis of this magnitude with Dr. Harold Koplowitz.
And we'll get a reporter's view of the past week's events from WABC reporter N.J. Burkett.
And Iyanla Van Zant will be here. She's going to talk about the 7 stages of grief, and she's a very inspirational person, so hopefully she'll be able to maybe pull us
up. So much has been written about this story that I want to read one other column to you. It's going to take a few minutes to read it, and I know on television everything's got to be hippy-dippy and fast-paced, but I'm going to read this to you, and I hope you listen to it. This is one man's view of where we go from here. This was written by Leonard Pitts. This is out of the Miami Herald. This is a syndicated column, but I think he sums up where we are at this particular point in our lives. I heard this on WABC radio first. Richard Bay had it and read it beautifully. You monster, you beast, you unspeakable murderer. What lesson did you hope to teach us by your coward's attack on our World Trade Center? Our Pentagon, us, who? What was it you hoped we would learn? Whatever it was, please know that you failed. Did you want us to respect your cause? You just damned your cause. Did you want us to fear? You just steeled our resolve. Did you want to tear us apart? You just brought us together. Let me tell you a few things about my people. We are a vast and quarrelsome family, a family rent by racial, social, political, and class division, but a family nonetheless. We're frivolous, yet capable of expending tremendous editorial, emotional energy on pop culture minutiae. A singer's revealing dress, a ball team's misfortune, a cartoon mouse. We're wealthy, too, spoiled by what is readily available of trinkets and material goods. And maybe because of that, we walk through life with a certain sense of blithe entitlement. We are fundamentally decent, though, peace-loving and compassionate. We struggle to know the right thing and to do it. And we are, the overwhelming majority of us, people of faith, believers in a just and loving God. Some people, you perhaps, think all of that makes us weak. You're mistaken. We are not weak. Indeed, we are strong in the ways that cannot be measured by arsenals. Yes, we're in pain now, we are in mourning, and we are in shock, and we are still grappling with the unreality of the awful thing you did, still working to make ourselves understand that this isn't a special effect from some Hollywood blockbuster. The worst acts of terrorism in the history of the United States and probably the history of the world. You bloodied us as we've never been bloodied before. But there's a gulf of difference between making us bloody and making us fall. When roused, we are righteous in our outrage, terrible in our force. When provoked by this level of barbarism, we will bear any suffering, pay any cost, go to any length in the pursuit of justice. I tell you this without fear of contradiction. I know my people, and it causes me to tremble with the dread of the future. In the days to come, there'll be a recrimination, an accusation, fingers pointing to determine whose failure allowed this to happen and what can be done to prevent it from happening again. There will be heightened security, misguided talk of revoking basic freedoms. We'll go forward from this moment sobered, chastened, and sad, but determined, unimaginably determined. You see, the steel in us isn't always readily apparent. The aspect of our character is seldom understood by the people who don't know us well. On this day, the family's bickering is put on hold. As Americans, we will weep. As Americans, we will mourn. As Americans, we will rise in defense of all that we cherish. So I ask again, what was it you hoped to teach us? It occurs to me that maybe you just wanted us to know the depths of your hatred. If that's the case, consider the message received and take this message in exchange. You don't know my people. You don't know what we're capable of. You don't know what you just started, what you're about to learn. That's from Leonard Pitts, syndicated columnist, Miami Herald. Wonderful way of summing up where we stand right now and where we go in the future. We'll be right back in a moment.
Your voice is only the sounds of freedom. No longer lend your strength to.
Still ahead on Live, advice on how to talk with your children. Talk show host Iyanla Van Zandt, WABC TV reporter N.J. Burkett gives us a reporter's view of what happened. And coming up next, Regis gives us a first-hand look at Ground Zero.
Heard your anguish.
You know, we lost an engineer in this. We haven't found him yet. He's still on the missing list. Don DeFranco, WABC engineer who was manning the satellite atop the World Trade Center, as so many TV stations have facilities up there. Don DeFranco is still missing. We miss him very much and are praying that somehow he returns to us. A lot of people are donating things, and frankly, there's more than they could handle there. So let me tell you, if you'd like to make a donation, well, you can call the New York State World Trade Center Relief Fund. It's 800-801-8092. 800-801-8092. Or you can simply mail a check to the New York State World Trade Center Relief Fund, Post Office Box 5028, Albany, New York 12205. That's the best way, I suppose, to help if you'd like to help. Yesterday we went to what they call Ground Zero. Couldn't exactly get to Ground Zero, but got close enough to get a sense of what's going on down there, to thank all the people who are helping us out during this tragedy. Here's a look at some of the people I met and some of the things I saw yesterday afternoon. Very dramatic scene. This is about as close as we can possibly get to it. Incredible, isn't it? Almost a week has passed, and you can see the smoke billowing up there. Some of the wreckage. So much yet to be done. You can see the tremendous support system that's backing up the 1,500 men on those lines who continuously dig day and night. National Guard units, police units, all kinds of support units, people here to feed. It's really a tremendous, tremendous setup. How you doing, guys?
Hey, how are you?
Where are you from?
I'm from Massapequa.
Massapequa?
Uh-huh.
Are you here on a volunteer basis?
Yes, I am.
All right, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And a million volunteers as well.
Just doing what I can.
Handing out juice.
Yes.
What's it like when you're working in there?
Very wet because we have 5 sub-basements underwater.
So little by little, we're getting down. They're pumping around the clock. It's hot and humid. It's a little nerve-wracking.
What we're doing is we're here to help the cops, firemen, EMS, any of the rescue workers that need help with the stress.
We're on the triage unit, taking care of the firefighters who come through here with stuff in the eyes or cuts and bruises or sprained ankles and stuff.
Our 4 of us are here on our own time.
We're brothers. We came down on our own time.
3 brothers here?
Yes.
I'll be done.
Work in the Bronx. Mike works in Queens.
Here at the corner of this vacant lot at the Western Canal Street intersection, and you can see the makeshift signs that you've heard so much about. Candles that are, in some cases, still burning. Simple signs, profound signs, signs of love, flowers, somebody's old toy, and it just continues right up the wall here. People who have just come here to express their feelings and how sorry they are about what has happened. It's quite touching.
I've been in Vietnam, and I've never seen anything like this.
You've been here every day?
Every day since Tuesday afternoon.
Con Ed working around the clock, huh?
Yeah, we sure are. Trying to get it back to normal. Show them that we bend a little, but we're not going to break. There's no way.
Thanks, Almost looks like a street bazaar, but these are the things that have poured in here to New York City. Eye wash, down to socks, different medications. Again, more socks over here. Let's see what this is. Little foodstuffs, candy, everything that they could possibly want. Believe me, everybody's so grateful to all of the people who donated and volunteered their services for this disaster.
God bless America.
We'll get through it.
We bend a little, but we're not going to break. There's no way.
Coming up, we have Ilanya with what to do about the grief that is so widespread, seems everywhere in the country. And also a doctor who will tell you how to tell your children. Now, I guess your little guy's a little too young for that, or is he asking?
He is not. He knows all about it and is...
How do you tell him? It's tough, isn't it?
Honestly, you have to be honest, but you have to edit carefully. And I read what this doctor had to say, and I'm so thankful that he's here today.
Yeah. And coming up next, an eyewitness account of what happened from N.J. Burkett, one of the top reporters here at WABC TV. We'll be right back.
Still ahead on Live, tips on how to discuss recent events with your children. Some members.
Can hardly see it, but there is the Empire State Building standing all alone out there. Joining us now in the studio is WABC TV reporter N.J. Burkett, who was on the scene right after the disaster hit. It's nice to see you, and I really mean that.
It's nice to be seen.
Everybody's had a close call over the last couple of days. So where were you exactly when it happened?
Well, I was actually on my way into work. I was walking in the front door just outside the studio here, and your outdoor photographer called me over and said, you know, you're not going to believe what's happened. Planes hit the World Trade Center. He said, you better get in there. And, you know, so I ran in, hit the elevator button. By the time I got to the 4th floor, Regis, the 2nd plane had hit. And it was clear that it was a terrorism attack. So I grabbed the first cameraman I could, jumped in a truck, and we just careened through the streets of Manhattan, some 75 blocks to the base of the World Trade Center. We got to within 1 block of the towers. And hose lines running everywhere, firemen running everywhere. It was chaos. An absolute disaster scene. Debris was falling down the side of the building, so we knew we couldn't get that close.
Both towers still standing?
Yeah, and that's the most amazing thing. You know, we went around to the side of the Trade Center. Stuff was coming down the sides, very close to the side of the building. But we felt we were safe if we stood across the street. So we were on the West Side Highway, standing across the street, and there was a group of firemen who were there in a staging area. And it was amazing. We stood there and looked up, and we really believed that for the next several hours it was going to be the towering inferno. Nobody expected the buildings to come down. And I taped this on-camera thing and at the staging area. And, you know, I explained to the cameraman, here's what I want you to do. Have me here, and then as I talk, pan up to the building. And here's what we taped.
Happened.
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way!
That was the door.
Your voice is something I will never forget. We were watching live at home by then, and when I heard you say, get out of the way, it was in your voice that I thought, he's not going to get out of there. There's no way.
And there was a door that we ran into in the World Financial Center.
Across the street, it seems.
Well, it was right next to us, actually.
Right next to us.
We ran into that door. Marty Glembotsky, the photographer, and I just ran for that door. And you know, this is what haunts me. What if there were no door? What if it was a fence? What if the door were locked? We wouldn't have gotten out of there. And not only that, what if the building had fallen over on its side? I'm haunted by that too.
So once you're inside,
once we're inside, that's right. It comes down. We kept running through the building because we felt the building was fortified, but it might come down too. So we ran out the back, and of course debris is flying everywhere. And I ran for another block, and we found a woman to interview, and we interviewed a woman who described the scene of having seen both planes hit the towers. And then moments after we finished that interview, paramedics came running over to me, and they knew me from TV, and they said, NJ, you know, look, it's not worth it. You've got to get out of here. And I said, well, what's going on now? And they said, the other tower is leaning, and it's about to come down. Moments after he told me, here's what happened.
Oh my God, there it goes!
I'm amazed Marty stood there to make that shot. Now that's Marty's shadow as he's running down the street. I'm screaming to him to come with me. We found an open door at a parking garage. We ran into the parking garage, dust everywhere, but we wanted to escape the dust cloud that was inevitably going to come into that parking garage. That's a policeman kicking in the door. Now I've found a glass booth where the attendant sits, and we went in there to wait, and hoping for the dust to settle, hoping that it wouldn't follow us all the way into the parking garage, but it was an absolute mess.
But the people had the masks right off the bat, it seems.
Well, in between the first collapse and the second collapse, there were some EMTs who were handing out masks. Yeah, they keep them in the ambulances.
Did you sit in there and ponder, what if we're sitting ducks in here? What next? I mean, what do you think about when you're all sitting in that little tiny booth?
Well, you know, Kelly, it's like that clip that Joe showed. The dust cloud follows you. You know, it's like every Hollywood film that you've ever seen. It follows you. You know, when you saw the building let loose, it's amazing because the debris blows out, it blows up, and sort of hangs in the air. It's almost like it happens in slow motion. And then you know that you've got a moment, it's going to be a hard rain, it's going to come down like an avalanche, and you've got to get away. When the first building let loose, we knew we only had a matter of seconds to find some way to get away from all that debris. And if we didn't, we wouldn't have made it. And there are a lot of people who did not make it.
You made it, NJ. Thank God. Good luck to you. Thanks very much for telling us about it. All right, coming up next, we're going to help your kids cope with this crisis.
Still ahead on Live, advice for coping with crisis from talk show host Iyanla Vanzant.
Live shot from the World Trade Center. The digging continues. Hard enough for an adult to deal with this tragedy, but what about the kids? What do we say to them? Joining us now to offer some advice is Dr. Harold Koplowitz, the director of NYU's Child Study Center. Nice to have you here, Doctor. Now, I understand there are 5 steps to remember, for parents to remember how to talk to your child about a tragedy like this.
I think the first thing that parents have to do is start the discussion, because your kids are going to find out information from other places. Even kids as young as 4 years old are finding out from either images on TV or from other friends, or even nursery schools are discussing it. So once you start the discussion, you should find out what your kids know and discuss it in terms that they can understand. So that's really the second step, because what are they feeling? What do they know? How are we going to help them? And then the third step is to be truthful and honest, but censor yourself. There's no reason why you should tell them information that is unnecessary for them. And you can also tell them how you feel, but not with a catastrophic reaction. I'm upset, I'm scared, but you're still truthful. You also should shut the TV off for children under the age of 5. Don't let them watch TV. Think of this as pornography. It's hurtful, it's harmful. For kids to watch that plane go into the building again and again, they think it's not the same event. They think it's a new event again and again.
It was fascinating when I read that you said they think it's a different situation happening all day long. I mean, because I know my son has seen it. He has seen it on television.
Well, even kids who are older, you should watch how much TV they watch. So if they're 6 to 12, watch a half an hour with them so they can process this.
Doctor, when the child asks you why these men did this, what do you say?
It depends on how young, but if we're talking about a 4 or 5-year-old, you talk about bad people, bad, evil people who have done something because it was insane hatred. They hated us so much, they don't know us, but they hated us, and now our government is going to get them. We're the good guys, and we're going to get them. And more importantly, kids are concerned about their safety. Our airlines are going to be safer. Our government is going to be very, very vigilant about changing things. And the most important thing is, this is like a funeral. You know, someone has died. It's time to get back on with normalcy. It's never going to feel exactly the same, but it's time for us to move on. It's time to have normal TV programming. It's time for kids to go back to school. It's time to also have kids laugh a little bit, to go to the movies, to go to a restaurant, to play with their friends.
I like the idea of being positive about some of the things that are happening because of this tragedy, you know.
And you have to tell them we trust our government. That no matter if they're a teenager or they're a middle school child, the point is we have a democracy, it works, and we trust our government, and it's going to help take care of us. And then you help kids do something that they might be able to do, a bake sale. They might get T-shirts for their fire department.
Get them involved.
They might wear a friendship bracelet of red, white, and blue to remember the people who passed.
I understand you've got a great website at NYU. Folks can tune in.
Sure. It's called aboutourkids.org. It changes every day. It's telling parents how to help kids, not only with this World Trade Center disaster, but also with other things that they get faced with in the difficulties of parenting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kopowicz.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you
so much.
We'll be back with the Yanla next. Talk about how to overcome grief.
Next on Live, advice from talk show host Yanla Van Zandt.
Joining us now is talk show host and author Yanla Van Zandt, here to help us sort out our feelings of grief, which seem to be prevalent all over the country, not just here in New York.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say to you and Kelly and the audience is take a breath.
Let it go.
Really allow yourself to breathe and put yourself back in balance, because most of us are moving through one or all of the 7 stages of grieving at once. First stage is shock and disbelief, where we just still are saying, I can't believe this. The next stage is denial. Those are the people who are walking around trying to figure out why everybody's upset. Then you have fear and anger. Some people are afraid to do things that they've normally done. And anger. People are enraged with them, what happened with each other. Then we have hurt and helplessness. These are folk who just can't figure out how to put one foot in front of the other. But where we want to move to is acceptance. Not that we like it, not that we accept it, that it happened, but that we begin to make choices about how we're going to respond. That is so critical. So now, everything that everybody's told you, resume the routine. But one thing I want to offer people is quiet time. Turn everything off. Or if you want something, quiet music, soothing music. Take a breath, get still, so that you can build a sense of well-being from the inside out.
You think the media has overdone it?
Well, I think we have to stay informed. But we now have to choose how much of the information we take in.
We've been inundated with the images of the plane going into the building. I mean, even our show today, we've done it.
So this is what I want to do, because that also has a physical imprint. It makes a mental and an emotional imprint. This is what I want to say to people. Bathe. Get in the tub. And then things that you can use: lavender oil, lavender room spray, roses. Buy some roses and look at them. I mean, we'd be surprised how images really help to soothe our soul. Put some lavender oil on a cotton ball or tissue, and people may think you're crying, but just take a whiff every now and then. The other thing, key, write. Write it out.
Write your feelings out?
You've been doing.
That's right.
We'll pause. We'll come right back in just a moment.
More to come on Live in a moment.
Thoughts about how to overcome grief.
Yeah. The final thing that I really want to offer to people is some of us are really experiencing guilt. We feel guilt that we survived. We feel guilt that we weren't there to help loved ones. We feel guilt we can't do more. We feel guilt about when we're going out now to shop or eat. So I say, acknowledge that you feel guilty, but that's the point that we've got to forgive. We have to get to the place of forgiveness. We've got to forgive ourselves for awfulizing. Forgive yourself for the bad things you're thinking and sending out into the world. And find some joy. The key, move your body. Exercise, walk, join a gym, stay in groups, bend, stretch. As we move that energy through our body, I promise you we will begin to feel better.
Yeah. All right, Elon, good advice. We got to pause again, but we'll be right back in a moment. Stay right there.
For more information on anything you've seen during our show, please go to our website. Live will return in a moment.
Iyanla, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with your show.
Very much.
Now, tomorrow we'll try to get back to a regular show, but before we do, let's take a look for the last time at some of the images of the past week. Have a good day, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. I don't know where this road is going to lead. All I know is where we've been and what we've been through. If we get to see tomorrow, I hope it's worth all the pain. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
$53 to $60.